big number.
Hello? Cryptic, I don't know how to... I mean, yes, I have. They do hurt quite a bit because there's a lot of very thin blood vessels there. There's a lot of nerves that are in the base of your nose. So yes, they are quite painful. Are you saying this is all over your face? I don't think that's called a rash then. I think that's just called acne on your face. Anyway, hi. Welcome in. Tonight is a special night. It is Halloween. It is Samhain. It is Hallows Eve. It is whatever else you want to call it. It is the night that everyone waits for every year for me to read some scary stories. Ooh. Happy Halloween! Yippee! Little thing before we get into reading. If I sound tired, that's because I am. Are you allowed to get sloshed? Only if you want. I personally have some hot chocolate with me. I just finished eating dinner. So if you want to, sure, grab some drinks, grab some snacks. Do whatever you want, and you are an adult. You can do whatever you want. But if I sound tired, that is because I am. For a very good reason, I attended a wedding today. It was very, very nice, very quick. Courthouse weddings are incredibly short, but very sweet and very nice. Very small gathering, but I am very socially tired. Also, got 3 hours of sleep because try as I might, I could not fall asleep for whatever reason. Probably that my internal clock is like, it's not 6 a.m., not bedtime yet. And so I wanted to shoot myself in the face for every time I checked my phone, and it was maybe only 30 minutes to an hour that had passed. Energy giving beam. Wow. Thank you. Appreciate it. I do feel a little bit of energy. Part two of that is because I am unfortunately decently allergic to dogs, which this couple has 2 of. They shed a ton for both of them. And I didn't have any allergy meds to take prior, which I need to take them really, really ahead of time for them to be able to work in a reasonable manner. And I didn't take any until after we had gotten back from the wedding reception, from brunch, and I've already been around the dogs. So only now am I kind of feeling the effects of the allergy meds, and I took them maybe around, I don't know, 5 hours ago. When I'm already home, away from the dogs. What up, Merc? Welcome in. Happy Halloween. So if I sound tired, that's because I am socially tired. Allergies take a lot out of me. Got 3 hours of sleep. So I'm all sorts of tired. So we're going to hopefully get through 2 stories. I found a couple stories on Reddit NoSleep, and as always, for anyone watching the VOD here, there will be credits in the description below of the author, the link where you can read this story if you want to read along. Dogs are for weenie munchers. We love cats here. Exactly. We're in the black cat appreciation cult. Emphasis on the black cat appreciation. So, without further ado, we have 2 stories today from Reddit NoSleep. Well, the first one is trick-or-treating comes with rules in our town, followed very quickly by, thematically, I found a stack of Polaroid pictures hidden in my son's Halloween candy. Someone's been stalking us. And that is the order we're going to read them in because I feel like that is appropriate. Here is our first story. If you want to go ahead and go to that link, read along if you would like to, you certainly can. I'm going to take a brief second here to sort of adjust myself and get comfortable, get ready to properly read and entrance you into this horrifying world of Halloween trick-or-treating catastrophes. You're already spooked. We're already in the fearful stage of the night. The unknown. The bumps in the night. Hopefully I don't sound stuffy. Pants are full of pee. Help. I'm so sorry. I can't quite help you there. I guess just to check. How is volume? Do I sound stuffy or raspy or other non-favorable attributes? I sound 90% good. I guess that's gonna have to do. there isn't much else I could particularly do with that. That's okay. Kind of wondering why the book was so low. I see why now. It's a VTuber asset with little hands. Alright, well, this is Trick or Treating Comes with Rules in Our Town by BriarDaniels in the Reddit NoSleep story, posted 3 days ago, so very aptly timed. This is our first Halloween in Oakbrook Village. Even as the first chill of September set in, I could tell something was different about the way this town celebrated. For one, the decorations were different. There were no cute inflatable decorations, despite the many families that had small children. There were also no Instagram mom decorations, no regal wreaths of autumn foliage or pumpkins painted gold. The kinds of decorations here were what I'd call, quote, tastefully creepy. Skeletons of all kinds, witchy hats, fake graveyards. No hockey masks or fake corpses or bloody body parts. I think every house had a jack-o'-lantern, lit every night without fail. Everything from classic triangle eyes to elaborate, contorted faces of witches and werewolves and ghouls. Avery and I didn't want to stand up, so we did some jack-o'-lanterns. She did a very elaborate one with a demon on it, and I did 2 rather shitty triangle-eyed ones, one for each side of the front door. Here's got the place of honor at the foot of the steps. But as Halloween approached, things started to get weird. A few days before Halloween, I found 2 papers taped to my front door. I yanked them off from the door and started to read. Rules for handing out candy. 1. Please be respectful and inclusive of all our trick-or-treaters. Teal candy buckets mean food allergies. Blue candy buckets mean autism. Do not hand out candy or anything else to children using a black candy bucket. 2. Never open the door for someone wearing a clown costume, child or adult. This is not a trick-or-treater. Turn off your porch light and wait until they leave. 3. If a trick-or-treaters come to your door asking to take shelter in your house, only let them in if the streetlights are flickering. Otherwise, do not let them in. 4. If you open the door and see a single child standing several feet from your door, facing away from you, close your door immediately. 5. Do not answer the back door for any trick-or-treaters. 6. If you are visited by a group of 3 children, specifically dressed as a pirate, fairy, and demon, offer each child something that holds deep sentimental value to you. You can take a while to decide. They will wait. Do not hold back. You do not want to find out what happens if they deem your objects unworthy. 7. Do not approach any houses that have an unlit jack-o'-lantern. 8. Trick-or-treating begins at 5 p.m. and ends at 8 p.m. You must be present to hand out treats for the entirety of that time. There's also a complimentary list underneath for those trick-or-treating. Rules for trick-or-treaters. 1. If you have food allergies, you may use a teal candy bucket to indicate it. If you have autism, you may use a blue candy bucket to indicate it. Do not use a black candy bucket. 2. Do not wear a clown costume. If you see a child or adult wearing a clown costume on someone's porch, skip that house and tell everyone in your party to skip it as well. 3. If the streetlights start flickering on and off, take shelter in the nearest house. 4. Always travel in groups. Never stray from your group. 5. Do not trick-or-treat at 18 Magnolia Avenue, the dark Victorian-style house at the end of the cul-de-sac. 6. Avoid the following costumes: pirate, fairy, and demon. There is only one group that uses these costumes. and they do not like to be copies. 7. Make sure you light at least one jack-o'-lantern for each member of your household. 8. Trick-or-treating begins at 5 p.m. and ends at 8 p.m. You must remain outside trick-or-treating for the entirety of that time. And then a third paper, which simply read, "Please note, all residents are expected to participate in our Halloween festivities. You may choose to either trick-or-treat, no matter your age, or hand out candy. However, please be sure to abide by all rules for your group." Do kids with autism get Tylenol candy, or why the special bucket? For the real answer probably being like a sensory thing, like they might not like certain candies, or they maybe don't want candy, maybe they want like a toy or some other thing. Maybe they're reactive to being approached. Variety of reasons. It had to be some sort of prank. Honestly, hats off to them. This was creative and creepy. I'd rather our teenagers be playing harmless pranks like this than scrolling TikTok. "You going trick-or-treating this year?" I asked Avery as I came in. "Yeah, Maddie and David are going with me," she said. "You want me to come with you guys?" "Mom," she groaned. "I'm 13. Okay. You'll have your phone, right?" "Yes." I gave her the rules list. "Did you see this? Some kind of funny prank." Avery looked them over. "Oh yeah, Maddie told me about them. They're legit." "What? We're supposed to follow them. They're real." "No way." "Yeah way." Was she involved? Or maybe the perpetrators were friends of Maddie's? I opened my mouth to say, "No way" again, but Avery's expression suddenly darkened. Serious. "Promise me you'll follow them," she said quietly. Seriously, promise me." "Okay. I promise." I almost regretted moving here. Things were getting weird. Too weird. But I tried to comfort myself by thinking about my increase in salary and how much closer we live to my boyfriend now. This was just a rocky, weird start. Things would look up from here. How wrong I was. Halloween night was cool and crisp, just as it should be. A full yellow moon hung low in the sky, and a brisk wind rattled the half-bare branches. Dried leaves skittered across the sidewalk, and the air was full of giggling excitement. Avery had left an hour ago. It was just me, alone, sitting at the door with a bowl of assorted fun-sized candy. I picked out all the Milky Way Midnights for myself as I did my annual watch of Hell House LLC. Ding dong! I got up, grabbed the bowl, and looked through the peephole. 3 girls in various princess get-up stared at the door, tulle in sparkles in green, purple, and orange. "Gojira, welcome in." I threw the door open. "Trick or treat!" they shouted in unison. "Oh, how sweet!" I said, reaching into the bowl. "What would you like?" That's when I noticed 2 things. First, there was no parent with them. The closest adults were all the way out on the sidewalk, and they didn't seem like they were waiting for the girls. The second, all 3 of them were holding black candy buckets. I froze, handful of candy mid-air. Those rules were a joke, right? I'm not going to tell these kids I'm not going to give them candy. That would be insane and so mean. The 3 girls stared at me expectantly, not smiling. I'm out of candy." Oh, real convincing. Good job. I was holding the candy bowl. I'm saving this for someone else." They stared up at me, not saying a word. "Sorry." I started to close the door. The door shut for the tiniest moment. They smiled, and I could have sworn I saw rows of razor-sharp fangs. I shut the door. My heart pounded, and I felt a little faint. I collapsed back into the chair by the door. They didn't have fangs. That's ridiculous. Or if they did, it was part of their costume. Vampire princesses. Yeah, probably some movie. I was unnerved until the next set of trick-or-treaters came. I made sure their candy buckets weren't black, and they weren't the pirate fairy demon triad. Then I sucked in a breath and opened the door. 3 boys in superhero costumes, trailed by a normal, tired-looking mother. I sighed a breath of relief and gave them generous handfuls of candy. When I closed the door, I texted Avery. Me. Some girls came to the door with black candy buckets. I didn't give them anything. Was that rude? Are these rules really a thing? After a minute, she replied, "You did good," thumbs up emoji. This is a species against demons like me? That's crazy. This is all so weird. I sighed and sat down, fidgeting with the candy, no longer excited to watch Hell House LLC. More trick-or-treaters came to the door, and each time I was relieved to see they were normal looking. Maybe everything was fine. Maybe this was all in my head. Then Avery texted me. "Don't open the door for the clown!" I frowned. I know, that's one of the rules, right? Avery, this isn't a joke, Mom. I just saw him. He's next door, coming to you next. I started texting her back. Ding dong. I stared at the door. Then I slowly scooted out of my seat. What appeared to be a fully grown man stood on my doorstep. He was decked out in a classic clown costume, but he was turned away from the door. I couldn't see his face, only the back of his red and white onesie, the curly plastic red hair of his wig. I stared at him through the peephole, my heart pounding in my chest. He was just standing there, not turning around or any... Ding! My phone. Avery, remember to turn off the light. Right, the porch light. I leaned over and flicked the switch. Porch lights cut out. I stared at the clown on my doorstep. Now not more than a shadow, lit in gray and blue tones in the moonlight. He slowly began to turn around. Painted white skin, red nose, dripping red lips, and something hanging from his hand that I only noticed now that he was slightly turned. An axe. He turned his head and kept turning until his head seemed to be turned more than a normal human neck would allow. I ducked away from the door, crouched out of view. I heard footsteps. I held my breath. But then the footsteps began to recede. When I finally looked through the peephole again, he was gone. Me, he's gone. Come home right now. Avery, I can't. It's the rules. Me, then I'll come get you. Avery, don't! It's the rules! Me, I'm calling the police then. He had an axe. 3 dots appeared, but Avery didn't text me back. Screw this. I hit call. 911, what's your emergency? There's some guy in a clown costume with an axe. My daughter is out there and... The officer interrupted me. What's your location? I gave it to her. Oakbrook Village? Yeah, I breathed. Don't open the door and turn off the porch light. What? If he comes to your door, don't open it and turn off the porch light. The blood drained out of my face. He poses no risk to the trick-or-treaters, ma'am, as long as they stay away from him, as the rules ask. I opened and closed my mouth. No sound came out. So they're true? I finally croaked. As long as you follow them, you'll be safe. And then the call disconnected. I stared at my phone, my mind blank. Me, anything else I should know? Avery, just follow the rules. Me, are you sure I can't come with you? Avery, Mom, don't. You can't leave early. You can't. I began to cry. Why hadn't I insisted on going with Avery? I can't stay here. I have to get her. I'll drive to her. What's going to happen? Someone's going to shoot me down or something? I have to be with her. That's my kid. As if Avery could read my mind, another text came in. Avery, promise me, Mom. Just wait until 8. Everything will be okay. I cried harder. Ding dong. I got up and wiped my eyes, grabbed the candy bowl and opened the door, looked down at the 3 kids standing on my doorstep. Trick or treat! Wait a minute. A pirate, a fairy, a demon. I swallowed. These were the kids that wanted something of sentimental value from me, right? I looked at each of them. As a group, they looked normal, but when I looked closely at each of their faces, something was a little off. The pirate's face was too long. The fairy's eyes were too big. The demon was wearing a mask, but I could see her hands, and they were too big to be a child's. Okay, sentimental things. Do I really have to do this? Just a second, I said, and walked back into the house. I scanned the fireplace mantle. There was a photo of Avery and me up there at the fair, each of us holding a pink fluff of cotton candy. We'd gone there right after the divorce. The digital copy was lost, so it wasn't like I could print another one. I could give that to them. Would it be cheating to take a photo of it with my phone first? Damn it, I love that photo. But it was just a photo. Me, do you think the photo of us on the mantle is sentimental enough for the 3 kids? Avery, I think so. I grabbed it off the mantle and walked back to the kids. I dropped it in the pirate's bag and wiped my face. Surprisingly, he immediately turned around and walked off the porch, back into the dark. I guess that meant I satisfied the request. Okay, you're next, huh? I said to the fairy with the huge eyes. She nodded. I went back into the house, looked around. I grabbed another photo off the mantle, another one I'd lost the digital copy to. It was me holding her at the hospital right after birth. I grabbed it and held it over the fairy's bag. She shook her head. She was no longer smiling. Okay. Maybe I couldn't repeat the type of object. I walked back into the house and glanced around. What was most sentimental to me, really? My eyes fell on the painting in the kitchen. That had been the first and only painting I'd ever won anything for. I'd submitted it to the fair when I was 18, thinking I had a promising art career ahead, that this was the start of the rest of my life. But life hadn't turned out that way, had it? I'd spent 5 years living in a rat-infested apartment in Brooklyn, eating ramen every night, churning out painting after painting, only keeping myself afloat with more erotic pieces I'd painted. I'd eventually closed that chapter of my life and went back to school for accounting, but a tiny part of myself had always thought, maybe someday. I grabbed the painting off the wall, a landscape of a dreary bog and a cabin in shambles. It looked like how I felt right now. It didn't fit in the fairy's bag, so I dropped it at her feet. I hope that's sufficient, I whispered, staring down at her. She picked up the painting and walked out the porch. So it was just the demon left. His ice blue eyes stared up at me through the mask. Does he wear the mask because he doesn't look as human as the others? After a few minutes of searching, I found something even more precious than the last two. Avery's baby blanket. The one she came home from the hospital swaddled in. I pressed it against my chest, crying, then got up and offered it to the demon child. It shook its head. I don't know what you want from me. This is probably the most precious thing I've ever owned. It shook its head again. Then it lifted its hand and pointed at me. Does it want me? Is it just going to kill me? Me? I finally asked. It shook its head. And then it spoke. A low, grating whisper, barely audible over the wind. Your daughter. No, not Avery, no! My voice cracked. I began to shout. Not Avery, you can have anything but Avery. The demon child stared up at me. Then, noiselessly, turned and walked away. I stood there, frozen in the doorway, watching him disappear into the shadows beyond the halo of the porch light. I finally found the strength to close the front door. Then I collapsed in the chair and sobbed. I don't know how long I sat there, sobbing my eyes out, but before I knew it, my phone was ringing. Avery was calling, and it was 8:01 p.m. I let out a long sigh of relief. Avery? Are you okay? Are you? What? I'm standing outside, but, one of the jack-o'-lanterns isn't lit up anymore. I got up and peered out of the peephole. Sure enough, I saw Avery standing at the foot of the porch steps. She's okay. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I don't understand. What does that mean? I don't know, but the rules say don't approach any houses with jack-o'-lanterns that aren't lit up. Wouldn't that only apply before 8 p.m.? I don't know. I think I should stay at Maddie's tonight. My heart dropped. Are you sure you're okay? Yeah, I just don't want to risk breaking the rules. So that was it. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I cried the entire time. How could I really know that Avery was okay? I'd seen her, sure. I'd heard her voice on the phone. But what if that was some sort of illusion? What if she actually wasn't safe? What if that demon child had somehow gotten her anyway? Could he take her without my permission? But at 9 the next morning, the front door creaked open and Avery walked inside. I hugged her and cried, and she pried me off and groaned, "Mom." But for the next few weeks, I watched her like a hawk, not only to make sure she wasn't in danger, but also, what if the demon child had actually taken her? What if this was some mimic, some thing imitating her, and not really my daughter at all? Because Avery never tied her shoes like that before. Avery never blinked like that before, as if the sunlight hurt her eyes. Avery never filled her sketchbook with dark, spindly creatures of the woods before. Never went out foraging for mushrooms, digging her pink manicured nails into the damp, dark dirt, breathing in the smell of earth and decay. As the days went on, I grew more and more suspicious. A heavy weight in my gut, until one night she cooked me dinner with some stuff she'd foraged, and I began throwing up. I halfway thought she, the thing that had replaced her, had poisoned me. I was wrong. You see, I was pregnant. That June, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Ava. Avery was over the moon to have a little sister, and even though it turned our plans upside down, it was the best thing to ever happen to us. Except a birth in June meant that I was pregnant on Halloween. And the demon child, it had asked for my daughter. And I'd said it could have anything. Anything other than Avery. It's the beginning of October now. We've since moved out of Oakbrook Village, but I still wonder if on Halloween night, that thing will somehow find me and take what I promised. Hi, Kyler. No, it's November. It's still Halloween in the States, so you're wrong. So that's the end of our story. Trick-or-treating comes with rules in our town. Can't believe she's an accountant too. I know that all too well. Is this how I feel about Bart? Oh, like being overprotective of him? Yeah, a little bit. That's why I don't have a second rat child. There can only be one. Oh. I don't know why that didn't go off. Hi, Pixel. Oh, there it goes. Good night, Kyler. And thank you, Pixel, for the subscription. Appreciate it. Tell the haunting tale of the Pinar explosion chamber. I don't think you guys are ready for that story. That's a really, really scary story. Damn you, disposable income. Yeah, I've been wondering where you've been. You've been gone for quite some time. I hope you're doing okay though. Hope job's going well for you. I too am job searching for a hopefully better job. We have something maybe in the pocket. Kind of in the midst of waiting. I've been emailing a person back and forth with some information and questions. So hopefully that maybe leads somewhere. Whoa, Pixel! Thank you for the gift sub. Kyler, make sure to say thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Pixel. That's very nice of you. It's a Halloween miracle. Yippee! I already went to the Pinar explosion chamber. It's less fun when you find out you're the subject. I would expect nothing less. Trick or freak? I'm eating the toilet paper again? Only if you replace it. Because that's a good source of fiber. Oh, I feel like I sound really congested. Pinar explosion chamber, aka my bedroom. I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't know you were Pinar-less. I sound like a boy kisser. I mean, I should. I should sound like a boy kisser. Be a little strange if I didn't, I think. Imagine kissing. Could it be me? Certainly not. Not for Kyler. No, no. No kissing of any kind for Kyler. Limitless brain bowel replacement? What the? That's crazy. That's wild. Anyway. For anyone that would like to read along, here is our second story for tonight. This is... Not often I find someone that makes me blink in surprise. That is Pixel. Pixel is quite the creature. This is, I found a stack of Polaroid pictures hidden in my son's Halloween candy. Someone's been stalking us. This is on the Reddit NoSleep page. by ElliotPryce. Hopefully I said that right, because it's Pryce. I would imagine it's pronounced Price. Either way, neither of us knew what was waiting for us inside Max's candy bucket. We just brought it back home from trick-or-treating and unlocked the front door. The second I turned the knob, Max shot into the living room, holding his pumpkin-shaped candy bucket in both hands. He flipped it over, gave it a shake, and all its candy poured out onto the carpet. Then he tossed the bucket aside. "Mommy, Mommy!" he screamed. "Can I eat my candy now?" I came in behind him, laughing, because only a 5-year-old could get that pumped up about eating candy. "Thank you for asking. Go ahead." I sat beside him, crisscross applesauce, and watched. Max worked through the pile by opening a piece, tasting it, then either scrunching up his face or giggling in approval before moving on to the next. It was adorable. Seemed like that made me smile. But as I kept watching, the moment began to sour. See, I was a single mother. We lived off my income alone. And because I was just a waitress in a small cafe, money was tight. There were some days when I could only afford to feed Max, and not myself. Whenever he asked why I wasn't eating, I'd say I already ate at the restaurant, which was a lie because even with my employee discount, those meals still cost money. My manager had even fired employees before for sneaking food without paying. I lied because I didn't want Max to worry. I think kids shouldn't have to worry about those kinds of things. They should be having fun, like Max is doing right now. But while I watched him eat his candy and I saw the happiness he got from what only strangers could give him, something twisted up inside me. I felt like a failure as a mother. Max noticed I wasn't eating any candy and piled several pieces in front of me. "No, honey," I said, putting them back on his pile. "These are all yours. Mommy doesn't want any." "Why not?" "Because I don't want to take any from you." Once I said that, a flicker of sadness moved in his eyes. He looked up at me, almost like he was beginning to understand something about me, like he'd had a realization, wise beyond his years. It broke my heart. "Okay," I said, "just one. You choose." Max smiled. He hovered his little fingers over the pile, carefully weighing his options, and stalled over a Reese's peanut butter cup. He squeezed down and lifted underneath the corner of something jabbed out. It looked like a small stack of paper. It looked glossy and even gleamed in the overhead light. Whatever it was, I could tell it wasn't candy. Did one of the neighbors put something in there by accident? I reached down and pulled at the corner, and out slid a stack of Polaroid pictures. There were 3 of them, stuck together with a rubber band. "What's this, Max?" Max didn't say anything. He watched curiously as I snapped off the rubber band and flipped the stack over. The first picture framed a residential home at night. An adult woman stood on the sidewalk with a hand on her hip, watching a much smaller person, most likely a child, approach the front door. The lighting was so dark, I couldn't tell who they were, but in the child's hand, I could see them gripping onto something, like a pail or a bucket. Right then, I got it. This was a parent watching her child go trick-or-treating. Yep, one of the neighbors must have put this in here by mistake. I wonder who it was. I flipped to the next picture. I actually recognized the subject in this one. It was my neighbor Terry, standing at his open front door. Someone who was hidden just beneath the frame held up a bucket, and Terry, smiling warmly like always, dropped a few pieces of candy in. Something about that bucket caught my eye. I studied it, noticing its circular shape, and realized it was designed to look like a pumpkin. My eyes drifted over to Max's pumpkin-shaped bucket on the carpet. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't want to jump to any conclusions. I flipped to the final picture. It was a shot of an open window, taken from behind a bush. A few out-of-focus leaves dangled in the foreground, but in sharp focus, right in the center of the picture, was my son's smiling face. I was behind him, zipping up his costume, just before we went trick-or-treating. We were standing inside this very room. "Max," I said, keeping my voice as calm as possible, "which house gave you these?" Max scrunched up his forehead while he thought. He shrugged. Then he reached for another piece of candy. I blocked his hand. "Stop. Don't eat any more of that." I stood, glanced around. I was beginning to panic. "How come?" "Because I said so. Don't ask questions right now." Max began to cry. Oh. I ran to the front door to check the lock. It was already set. Okay. I'd just taken my son trick-or-treating. Someone was following us. They took pictures of us and then dropped those pictures inside his bucket. We only went around our neighborhood, so it had to be one of our neighbors who did it. Was this someone kind of sick joke? Or was one of them really stalking us? What do I do? I looked past the living room into the kitchen. My phone was on the island counter. I raced over to it and dialed 911. It rang twice, then the operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, Max interrupted, tugging on my leg, crying for me to let him eat more candy. Honey, I will buy you more candy, but mommy's on the phone right. 911, the operator repeated. Please state your emergency. Yes, we need help, please. I think someone is stalking me. The operator took down my name, address, and details about what happened. 10 minutes later, 2 officers were at my house. One shone a flashlight around my property, while the other one, a young, tall officer, came to the door. He introduced himself as Officer Dan and asked for the photos. I'm Jenny, and this is all of them, I said, handing them over. He took them with a gloved hand and scanned over the first one. While I waited, I felt Max stir behind me. He was hiding behind my legs, picking up at the officer. Officer Dan flipped to the second one, looked at it, then cleared his throat. Who's the man here? That's my neighbor, Terry, but it couldn't be him. He's a good man. I'm sure he is, he said. He flipped to the final picture. He studied it, and as he drank in the details, the faint lines around his eyes sharpened. He looked down at Max, then up to me. So, what's going to happen now? I said. My voice sounded more desperate than I had intended. We're going to sweep the neighborhood. Even if we don't find anything, there will be an officer nearby to patrol every hour. Also, we'll speak with Mr. Terry. Not because he's a suspect, but just in case he's seen any suspicious activity. Also, I see that he has a Ring camera. We'll check out the footage on that as well. Now, ma'am. He took a glance behind me. Is it just you two in the house? Yes, I said. Just us. Is there somewhere else you can stay tonight? Maybe with friends or family? There wasn't. All of my friends were my husband's, and once he left me, so did they. I started to answer, but was caught by surprise when tears welled in my eyes. Whether it was because the stress of our situation or just me being scared, I didn't know. I blinked them away before they could fall and shook my head. No, it's just us. He nodded. Well, there's a DoubleTree down the road. Wouldn't be a bad idea for you guys to book a room tonight. Book a room? I don't even know how I'm going to feed Max tomorrow. Officer, that's not really an option for us. Officer Dan gave me this look then. Honestly, it wasn't so different from the one Max sometimes gave me. With Max, I always thought it was a normal sadness that kids feel when they don't get things their way. But with the officer, there was something deeper. I think he actually felt sorry for me. I never wanted that. I never wanted that from anybody. I felt embarrassed. Look, he said, pulling a pencil and notepad from his shirt pocket. This is my personal number. Doesn't matter what time. If you need anything at all, give me a call. I'll be close. Thank you, officer. Just stand, he said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Then he turned and left. I closed the door and rested my forehead on it. Mommy? Max said. What's happening? I shut my eyes. It's alright, sweetie. Mommy's just trying to fix a problem, that's all. We both got quiet. A few seconds passed. Will we be okay? I think so. Come on, let's go get ready for bed. Sleep in Mommy's room tonight. I'll come tuck you in. Okay, Max said. He ran up the stairs without a care in the world. Cop is the killer. I don't know. I put Officer Dan's number on speed dial. Then I checked every door and every window to make sure that the house was totally locked down. Half an hour later, I tucked Max into my bed, kissed him goodnight, and closed the door behind me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Officer Dan. He told me that the neighborhood was clear, but they keep a close watch. My heart sank. I'd hoped they would have caught the bastard, and we could put this whole mess behind us. All the same, I thanked the officer and told him goodnight. Sleep was out of the question. Instead, I'd fix a cup of coffee and sit up all night, and if I heard so much as a twig snap outside, I was calling the cops. I headed downstairs to start on the coffee. My chest tightened with anxiety. He was still out there. I just knew it. Probably even close by. What if he was standing outside the house at that very moment? I caught myself biting on a fingernail and stopped. That was a bad habit I developed when I was a kid, but nowadays it only flared up during moments of high stress. I passed through the kitchen and opened the cabinet, fishing out both my Maxwell House coffee grounds and a filter. I loaded the filter, dumped in a few scoops, and hit brew. Then I stood there a moment, feeling myself wanting to cry again. Damn it, Jenny, now is not the time to get emotional. You're the adult here. Hold it together. Something on the island countertop besides me shined in my periphery. I glanced over. Then I stared for a long time, in disbelief, trying to make absolutely certain that my eyes weren't deceiving me. Sitting right there, on the countertop, was a fresh set of Polaroid pictures. That was impossible. I'd given the officer everything I had. Was I losing my mind? I reached out, almost scared to touch them, and gently picked them up. In the first picture, Max was hiding behind my legs while I spoke with Officer Dan. Only this shot wasn't taken through an open window, from outside the house. It was taken from behind us, from inside the house. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. There was no way an intruder could have entered the house and taken a picture with an officer standing right there. I flipped to the next one. This one was of me in my bedroom, tucking my son into bed. And the way it was shot looked like something only possible in a dream. It was captured from a bird's eye view directly above our heads. A blade from the ceiling fan even cut into the edge of the frame because it was taken so close to the light. The shot was overexposed, which put a hazy kind of filter over it. This defied all logic. To get that picture, whoever or whatever took it would have had to have been suspended from the ceiling. They would have had to have manipulated themselves into an impossible angle. All without me or Max knowing. My hands were trembling now. The room was beginning to spin. Terrified now, I flipped to the final picture. It was of me, my back facing the camera, standing in my kitchen. I was looking down, studying something in my hands. Just like I was now, at this very moment. The shot was taken so close behind me. Whatever had taken it could have reached out and touched me. I needed to get Max out of the house, right now. Something snapped directly behind my head. Then the room was quiet again. My mind took a moment to register what it even was. But slowly, a sick realization slithered up from the pit of my stomach. What I had just heard was the shutter of a Polaroid camera. The camera's inner mechanisms hummed as it worked to print out the picture. I froze. I stopped breathing. In a desperate attempt, I tried reasoning with the intruder. "What do you want from me?" I cried. I listened for a response, still holding the pictures in trembling fingers. There was no reply. The picture finished printing, and whatever was behind me stood perfectly still. Several seconds ticked by. Was it waiting for me to turn around? Across the counter, against the back wall, was a block of kitchen knives. I wished they were closer, but they were way out of reach. Depending on what happened next, maybe I could get to them. But for now, I would have to turn and face whatever was behind me head on. One slow inch at a time, I turned my head, my heart pounding inside my chest. I expected to be stabbed, or choked, or grabbed at any second. I turned a little bit further and shot a glance back. The kitchen was empty. I exhaled, but a new fear, much greater than before, exploded inside me. It's going to get Max. I dropped the pictures and shot around the corner and ripped out the biggest knife from the block. Then I dug out my phone and hit call on Officer Dan's contact. Call failed. I tapped the screen several more times. Call failed. Call failed. Call failed. I slammed it on the counter in a fit of anger. Of all the times for my phone to not work, of course it would be now. I had no other option. I'd have to run upstairs and get Max by myself. I moved through the downstairs with a knife aimed in front of me. I checked around every corner and every piece of furniture I passed. I sprinted up the stairs, then through the upstairs hallway towards my bedroom. I pushed the bedroom door open softly, slowly, horrified that it had already beaten me there. Thankfully, Max was still under the covers, safe and sound. I peeled the blanket off of him and scooped him up in my arms. "Mommy?" he said, rubbing his eyes. "Shh. We have to go. Stay quiet." He wrapped his arms around me and put his head on my shoulder. I crept over to the door and peeked into the hallway. Empty. I carried Max down the hall towards the stairs. If we could just make it out to the front door, I'd run straight to the neighbors and call the cops from there. Just a short trip down the stairs through the living room. We could do it. When we neared the steps, I heard the worst noise imaginable. Footsteps pounding up the stairs. My mind entered into fight or flight mode. Should I attack? Give Max a chance to run? No, I can't leave him. He'd never get away. I backed up. To my right was my son's bedroom. I ducked inside and rushed to the closet. I inched open the door as quietly as I could, but still it squeaked on its hinges. We slid inside. There was barely enough space for both of us. I clicked the door shut and stood in front of Max, using my body as a shield. Mommy, what are we doing? I turned and cupped a hand over his mouth. Not another word. We listened. With each passing second, the footsteps grew closer, until they arrived at the bedroom door. Then they slowed to a nice and easy stroll and entered the room. Floorboards creaked under a shifting weight. Something paced across the room from left to right, like it was searching for us. Once it reached the right wall, it stopped, then turned and moved towards the closet. I tightened my grip on the knife. A stream of adrenaline coursed through my veins, making my skin tingle. I fought hard to keep my mind clear and focused. If the door opened, I would take them by surprise, hammer the blade down in one quick motion. It was all I had. It came right up to the door and stopped. The sound of our own breathing filled the closet. A floorboard creaked. Every nerve inside my body screamed. What is it doing? Why is it just standing there? Then, the camera clicked. Through the gap under the door, a light flashed. Against all logic, all reason, it had taken a picture of the closet door. A deep yet childlike laughter vibrated into the closet. The camera clicked again. It knew exactly where we were, and it was playing games. It was toying with us. Max's body trembled behind me, and a soft whimper escaped from his lips. I prepared myself. The door would open any moment, and it was up to me to save our lives. I raised the knife so I could swing it down right as the door opened. I held my breath. I listened as the handle jiggled and began to turn. The door swung open. I hacked the knife blindly in front of me. Officer Dan staggered backward just in time. Whoa, whoa! I darted my eyes around the room, looking for blood. I was frantic. It's just me! It's just me! No one is here. I've got you. You're safe. No, we're not. It was just here. I heard. We have multiple officers searching your home. No one is here. I scanned the room again. There was no camera, no creature, no obvious threat. The stress of what had just occurred began weighing down on me. I lost my sense of balance and stumbled. Officer Dan caught me by the arm. He guided me toward Max's bed. As I sat down, Max darted out from the closet and jumped onto the bed and clung onto me. You called me, remember? Officer Dan said. But you didn't say anything, so we were afraid something had happened. We forced open the front door, then heard you guys in here. Did you think he broke in? I know he did. There were footsteps. There's more pictures. Just look on the counter. There are no signs of forced entry, Jenny. Officer Dan paused and glanced over at the closet door. He ran his palms together, then approached the bed. He took a seat beside us. You know, sometimes, in high-stress situations, our minds produce things, sounds, images, things like that aren't really there. It's perfectly normal. Given your situation, it's possible that that's all that happened. Don't talk to me like that, Dan. Don't talk to me like I'm crazy. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. You're a cop, not a therapist. Get off the bed. Once I snapped on him, Officer Dan had no more psychotherapeutic explanations for me. He stood and left us alone in the room. He left the house, in fact, but some of the other officers were kind enough to stay with us until morning. For the rest of the night, there were no more signs of the intruder. The next day, I applied for a credit card and checked us into a hotel. I also put that house on the market. A week later, someone bought it. I took the money and bought a new house in a completely different state. Even though the old one sold well under its value, I didn't care. As long as we left behind whatever was in there, we had all we needed. At Max's new school, I met a group of moms that I became friends with, and that made a huge improvement on my quality of life. For the first time in a long time, I had people who cared about me. These ladies checked up on me, came over for wine night, got me out of my house. They even introduced me to a great guy who I'm still dating. Max made some new friends of his own and seemed happy at his new school. For a while, things were pretty great. This morning, I put a note in Max's lunchbox, telling him how much I loved him. I know that this is incredibly lame, but I couldn't help myself. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I always want him to know that. When he got home from school, he threw his lunchbox on the counter, ran up to me, and kissed me on the cheek. "I love you too, Mommy," he said. Then he went into his room to do his homework. My heart filled with joy. I was floating as I started to clean out his lunchbox. Then, for the first time in a long time, I actually cried. I cried because, at that moment, I loved my life. I wish things would stay like that forever. I took the ice pack out of the lunchbox, then turned it upside down over the trash can. A few plastic baggies dropped into the trash, and then a piece of paper fluttered out. Paper made of a different material than the one I'd written the note on. This one was glossy, small, and square. It was a Polaroid. Violent images flooded my mind. The flash under the door, the camera click, demonic laughter. I leaned against the wall. I was having trouble breathing. Calm down, I told myself. Calm down. Breathe. That's it. Maybe it was just something Max was working on in class. I fished the picture out of the trash can. It was taken inside a classroom. Kids sat at their desk, talking amongst themselves. It was all normal enough, but then I noticed the angle at which the photo was taken. It was taken from the back of the classroom, shooting down at the kids' heads, almost like it was taken from the ceiling. Pictured in the center, held in sharp focus, was Max's smiling face. He was captured mid-laugh. I screamed and dropped the picture. It spiraled to the ground and landed face down. There was a note scribbled on the back. Now I don't know what to do. I thought it was the house. I thought that if we had moved, we would leave that thing behind. But now I know it was in vain, because it followed us. On the back, written in dark red ink, were the words, "I love you too, Jenny." And that is the end of our second story. I think both were appropriately chilling. Okay, yeah, my door is shut. Alright. I love you too. What? I missed it? I love you too, Jenny, which is the mom's name. 2012 Insanity AMV? Yeah. Just a little bit. We might, maybe, have time for one more if I can find a kind of short one like these. R slash no sleep should be renamed to R slash no shit, for I have been feared shitless. Shiver me timbers, I have dungeoned my dungarees. Oh no. I'm so sorry, Big Soul. Oh, excuse me. Let's see. Ryan Gosling gif.
Mother, can I nest under your bed tonight?
You can have one better. You can sleep in my same bed with me tonight. Perfect. Every year I receive an unmarked envelope on Halloween. Posted also 3 days ago. A lot of these are very, very recent. The one we were just at. Oops. Was. 1 day ago, according to the post. I'd like to sleep on top of the moldy bread on your fridge. Joke's on you, there's no space above my fridge, but it is in a cabinet, so you may also do that. Ugh. I'm gonna take a slight pause before I read this supposed final story. But I will do this. I have to put my bread in the cup cupboard because my cat's eat through the plastic. Oh no. Funny man crushing Red Rush's skull gif. Crazy. I'm gonna take a very quick break because I feel like I sound very stuffy and congested. So I'm gonna try to like sort of adjust my nose if possible. So I'm going to mute very briefly. I'll be right back. Okay. Hopefully, maybe this might help. I don't know if you guys can hear a difference or not. Maybe there is no difference. Maybe I didn't even sound congested in the first place. But allergies fucking suck. There's not a whole lot I can do about it, unfortunately. I will say, it has been several hours since I've taken it. And, the now newly wedded husband that I had visited earlier today had given me a... I don't know how to explain this other than the actual medical term. A Gen 3 antihistamine. If you don't know what that means, there are different generations of antihistamines such as Benadryl, Zyrtec, and Claritin, etc., etc., right? there are different generations and they have different effects. And each generation is trying to work off of the success of prior ones. So Gen 1, Benadryl, has the very, very common side effect of making you very drowsy when you take it. That is the side effect of taking the antihistamine because of how it reacts with your body, how it reacts with whatever you're being allergic to, how it reacts chemically in your brain, etc., etc. So, scientists later developed a Gen 2, taking the basis off of Gen 1 antihistamine and trying to essentially make it so that you're not drowsy in Gen 2, because that had and is very dangerous to work off of, especially if you are driving, operating heavy machinery, etc., etc. Obviously, you don't want to be drowsy and sleepy while doing something so dangerous. So they've made a Gen 2. However, the issue with Gen 2 is that, yes, it may work and can sort of alleviate any major symptoms like breaking out or excessive sneezing, dry, itchy eyes, that kind of thing. It doesn't help with the smaller, or quote unquote smaller issues, being like congestion or your eyes being runny and teary, or maybe your temperature rises a little bit. And it didn't help with that. So that's what Gen 3 is basically a decongestant and allergy antihistamine in one. However, as I have learned over the many, many years that I've been alive, I need to take a lot of any medication for it to even work remotely decently. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I was kind of right. Further reduces sedation, improved efficiency, supposed to work faster, longer duration, so works faster for a longer period of time, lower incidence of side effects, so there's less, people reported less headaches, less gastrointestinal upset. However, unfortunately for me, it doesn't matter if I take Gen 1, 2, or 3, it does not help unless I either take a lot of it or I take it really, really, really far in advance. I thought it was just you being goth. I'm not usually as stuffy, unfortunately. How does that affect the trout population? Very, very little, thankfully. Trout, fortunately, don't have a lot of allergies. So, they don't need to take any of these types of medication. The Honda Civic resale market is not ready for this bandwidth. I don't think anyone is. It's a really remarkable topic. Unfortunately, I feel myself breathing harder, or like trying to catch my breath as I'm talking, which doesn't feel great. I don't feel shortness of breath, I just feel like it's harder to breathe. So, if I pause for a dramatic effect, know that I'm trying to catch my breath. Big kitty goth, big brain facts. I do have a lot of weird random facts. Because I just kind of like learning about things. Thank you for enlarging my brain with the knowledge. Didn't know that. You're welcome. If you have... Granted, I'm not a medical professional, right? So I can only have so much knowledge. But if you have questions about other general topics that I happen to know about, I don't mind telling you facts. I have probably too many facts about cats and cat breeds, big and small. Hollow Knight, Animal Crossing. Chicken breast brain got wrinkly. One wrinkle was added to your smooth pea brain, and I'm glad to have created that wrinkle. Are orange cats actually crazier? No. Interestingly, the color of a cat's fur has no correlation or causation to their behavior, because black cats or tuxedo cats or any color cat can be just as crazy. But for some reason, orange cats have just been reported higher for their silly antics. But genetically, no, it doesn't cause anything different. By listening to goth ASMR, no less. Is this really ASMR? I'm not like whispering into the mic. I'm talking relatively normally, but I guess I talk quieter naturally anyways. If you guys really wanted, I could like try to whisper and tell you secrets and things that you probably shouldn't learn, but I don't think it's as interesting as just me talking normally. Whispering stinky. Yeah, I personally, which I don't know why I necessarily call these ASMR, I don't like the whispering types of ASMR. It sounds like you're concerned. Whispering, that's, you know what, that's fair. Side tangent. I myself don't even like ASMR. The thing that people feel like the quote unquote brain tinglies, or like this sort of electrical shiver that they get when listening to people whispering, or like brushing, like a soft brush on like a really sensitive mic, or the gentle like clicking, tapping, whatever. Those give me bad tinglies. Like, I don't like that feeling. It doesn't make me feel like, ooh. It makes me feel like, ugh, stop. So I try not to give you guys that. I try to make it that I'm just kind of talking normal, but I do try to incorporate very minute sounds. Like, if there's a story that has knocking or tapping, I will try to, like, imitate it on my desk. Like I should have done that for like the doorbell. ASMR is weird. I made sloppy joes for dinner. Very yummy. Ooh. Are they traditional sloppy joes? Or are they questionable sloppy joes? I don't like normal ASMR. I'm glad that my ASMR crowd is just like me and hates regular ASMR, but will tolerate, if not enjoy, me just reading stories. So that's I added Lori's salt and Frank's red hot sauce. Posted a pic in Bun Discord. With added gushers. I knew there was something in there that shouldn't have been in there. A little fun, sugary surprise occasionally with each bite. That's unironically slaps. If you say so. suspirations? What suspirations of a goth roommate? What? That doesn't feel like a word. Is that a word? I love when Joe gushes. Okay. Alright. Okay. Cryptic, this is why I call you a boy kisser. Because you say things like this. You're crazy. Oh. Oh yeah, now my nose is like really irritated. Huh? What do you mean? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway. Chat, we have to kiss now. I pronounce you Pixel and Pop-Tart. Kimst. You may now kimst each other. Alright, anyway. The story in question. Every year I receive an unmarked envelope on Halloween. This is still in the r/NoSleep by New Technician 3118. I can't stand Halloween. Whenever October rolls around, I get a sinking feeling in my stomach that doesn't go away until the month is over, and sometimes not until December. Most people I tell this to are quick to label me as a cranky, bona fide Halloween time Ebenezer Scrooge, telling me to just lighten up and enjoy the spooky season. That is, until I explain why. When I reveal my reasoning as to why I can't stand the holiday, suddenly my disdain makes a lot more sense. For the past 11 years, on the morning of October 31st, I have received a photograph of a dead body. Always by mail, always in the morning, and always on Halloween. It does not matter if I move, if I change my name, or even if the mail is intercepted. One way or another, I will receive this unwanted Halloween trick. I don't know why they are sent, I don't know who is sending them, and I don't know why I, of all people, am their target. The only thing I know is that I received them and that I have to view them. This all started 11 years ago when I first moved out of my parents' house and into a new place with my best friend at the time, Astrid. We were both 19 and more than a little eager to get our first taste of adult freedom that only came with not living with our parents. Don't get me wrong, my folks are great, but I was ready to move on and begin the next chapter in my life. Astrid's reasoning was, comparatively, a bit more sour. She was just looking for any excuse to no longer share a roof with the drunk, gaslighting prick that was her father. When we first moved in, things are fine. The apartment was small, but not falling apart. The neighborhood was close to a discount grocery store. We both had stable enough employment, and the rent was actually fairly reasonable for two young college kids. It was far from perfect, but it was serviceable and affordable, and when you're just starting out, those are borderline luxuries. The worst thing that happened in those first few weeks was our sink suddenly leaking, and even then, we were able to get our elderly neighbor to fix it for us. The guy was so nice, he refused to let us pay him, and even when we tried leaving an envelope with some money in the mailbox, we just found it slipped right back under our door the morning after. All this to say that we were happy, we were content, and we were comfortable. The first picture arrived the same year we moved in. We had been living in our apartment for about 4 months now, enough time to acquaint ourselves with the neighbors, get a stable routine going, and the place actually feeling like home. Astrid and I had designated chores and responsibilities we both kept to, and one of mine was getting the mail. Most days that just meant bills, credit card offers, catalogs for stores, and maybe the odd collection of coupons for any number of fast food places. On that Halloween morning, however, while I was shuffling through the assortment of useless junk, I found a plain white envelope. I immediately knew that something was up with the letter, as there were no postmarkings anywhere on the envelope, not even a stamp. The only thing on it were two words, crudely written in plain black ink with what looked like to be shaky handwriting. To Jennifer. Immediately cautious, I set down the rest of the mail when I got back to the apartment and opened the envelope. Inside was a carefully folded digital photo of a woman, maybe my age, lying with her eyes closed on a bed with a green comforter in the near pitch black room. The woman's frame was illuminated by the glow of what I can only assume was a flash camera, revealing dark black hair and a peaceful expression on her face. I didn't know she was dead at the time, so I was more confused than anything, turning the photo over a few times to see if I was missing anything, but no, there was no date, no inscription that might have labeled some specific event, nothing. From the looks of it, it was just an odd photo of what I thought was a sleeping woman that I didn't recognize. Okay. Weird, I said to myself. What's weird? Asher's voice startled me, almost causing me to jump as I turned around to face her. My friend was still in pajama pants and a tank top, with her raven black hair tied up in a bun behind her head. This photo, do you know the girl in the picture? I asked. Astrid raised an eyebrow as I held out the picture for her to take, which she did. She stared at the photo for a bit, turning it and squinting as she did. Eventually, she just pursed her lips and shook her head. Never seen her before. Why? Because this just came for me in the mail. I held up the empty envelope as I answered her, positioning it so she could see my name on the paper. She stared at it for a minute, then put the photo in clear confusion. She's not a friend of yours? She asked. I shook my head. Can you just send it back? To where? I asked back, holding the envelope up again. There isn't even a return address on the thing. Where would I send it? Astrid just shrugged. After a few minutes of baffled back and forth, we ultimately decided that the letter was probably just some weird holiday prank and agreed to put the matter behind us. In hindsight, I know that was a mistake, but that is 2020, as they say. The rest of the year passed without incident, and by Thanksgiving, while I hadn't forgotten the mystery photo, I had stopped worrying about it. Most of the next year was equally uneventful, save for both of us trying to desperately avoid the drunken, angry phone calls from Astrid's father telling her to come home. By Halloween of the following year, I had almost completely disregarded the photo. To know that sounds kind of absurd, but I honestly thought it was just some weird prank at the time. I mean, one odd photo on Halloween, a day second only to April Fools for pranks and tricks, does not a red flag make. No, that red flag would start to raise a year later, when after bringing in the mail and sitting down with Astrid, we discovered another plain blank envelope saved for my name. For a moment, neither of us said anything or really reacted to the postage. I obviously can't speak for Astrid, but I was just too stunned in the moment to really think, let alone speak. When I did finally think, it was only in the form of a single question. Another one of these things? Astrid asked as she picked up the envelope and twirled it in her fingers. As I snapped out of my daze and glanced up at her, I wondered if she was aware that she had just vocalized my own question. Yeah, looks like it, I replied. I tried to sound dismissive, as if the second letter didn't bother me at all, as if its mere presence hadn't stunned my roommate and me to silence only a few moments ago. Thankfully, Asher didn't seem to notice my effort and casually tossed the envelope back on the table. And you still have no idea who might have sent it? She asked as she leaned back and crossed her arms. I looked back at the envelope, trying my best to recognize the handwriting as I thought through any prankster friends or weird neighbors who could have left it. While we had discussed possible culprits for the mystery mail a few times over the past year, it was never to a very deep or dedicated extent. Probably because of that, we never actually came up with any solid guesses. After sitting for maybe a minute, I realized I still didn't. Not a one, I admitted. Still more confused than I was scared, I picked up the envelope and carefully began to open it. You're actually gonna open that thing? Astrid asked with a half chuckle. I only replied with a shrug as I pulled out what looked to be another folded piece of paper. I half expected to see another random sleeping person. What I saw, instead, made my heart drop. The second photo depicted a Hispanic-looking man as he lay on his belly atop what looked to be old carpet. The man's head and arms were outstretched across the floor, his face turned to the side and noticeably pale. That's not to say that his face was completely colorless, as there was a massive purple and pinkish bruise on the side of his face. Most alarming of all was what looked to be a crimson pool of blood under the man's head, and a dried stream of red dripping from his nose. I'm not sure if I can accurately describe what I felt as fear. I was shocked, absolutely, and definitely a little disgusted. I suppose the best way to describe my exact feeling in the moment is to say I felt threatened. Maybe that's why I reflexively threw the photo onto the table. Ew, ew, ew! What in God's name is that? I shrieked as I flailed my hands like they'd actually touched a stranger's viscera. The picture, as if it somehow knew I didn't want to see it, flipped in the air as it gently floated towards the table, landing face down as it came to a stop. It was only after the photo was out of my hands that I started having any coherent thoughts, though even that was just panicked questions. Was that man dead? Why was he dead? Who had taken this picture? Was it legitimate or still a prank? Above all else, though, all I could muster in my head was, why? Why? Seeing my undignified freakout, Astrid got a curious look in her eye and took the photo off the table, wincing and scrunching her face as she looked at it. Ugh, that's gnarly, she said in a disgusted tone. Gnarly? I asked, stupefied that she could be so calm. Astrid, is that a real dead body? My friend, no doubt sensing my distress, looked up at me with a mix of sympathy and what I can only describe as a "did you really just ask that" look. Jen, it's not a dead body. She sounded certain when she said it, almost as admonishing. Like I was an idiot for even trying to consider the idea. If I'd been in my right mind, I'm sure I would have been offended that she'd be so dismissive. In the moment, however, my mind was a mess. How do you know? How do you know? Panic rising. I pressed my hands to my head, suddenly feeling very light and of breath, and like I was about to pass out. Without even realizing, I'd begun to spiral. I pictured some shadow of a man bursting into our apartment, approaching me slowly, and doing unspeakable things to me. No, 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 please, no. What if there's like a serial killer running around and he's like taking these weird photos of his victims? What if I'm next? What if I'm. Suddenly, I felt one of my hands be gently pulled away from my head, a comforting warmth placed on top of it. Girl, breathe. Just breathe and calm down, Astrid said, cutting me off. Her voice was still stern, but had now taken on an unmistakably soothing tone. Placing my free hand over my beating chest, I tried to compose myself as I looked at my friend, my eyes clouding up as I realized I'd begun crying. Astrid just smiled and sat with me patiently, holding my hand as I tried my best to relax, to tell myself I was okay. After a few minutes, I'd managed to mostly calm down, though I was still shaking a bit. Astrid, patient as ever, sat with me a little bit longer, rubbing the top of my head in an effort to reassure me. Finally, she spoke softly to me. Jen, it is Halloween. People pull pranks on Halloween. You're okay. She turned out to be right. By the end of the day, not only had we not been targeted by a serial killer, but I had met a genuinely kind and cute guy at a party. With Astrid's help pressuring, we even exchanged numbers and I learned his name, Isaac. It was maybe a little more jumpy than normal, but that was easy enough to explain away to anyone unaware of the spooky season. All in all, it was a great day and a more than pleasant holiday experience. Still, as I tried to sleep that night, my mind would drift into the photo of the dead man. Yes, I was still convinced he was dead, and to the first photo I'd received. How were those two photos connected? Had you been dead too? She didn't. She hadn't looked like it, but what other reason could there be that I'd received both? Why had I received them all? Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep that night. Over the course of the next year, I tried digging into the photos as best as I could. Unfortunately, I had almost nothing to work with, as Astrid had already thrown out both of the photos by the time I had decided to look into things. All these years later, I still don't blame her. For all she and I knew, they were just mean-spirited pranks that weren't worth holding on to. Still, this lack of physical evidence made asking questions of the neighbors incredibly awkward. Before you judge them too harshly, though, I'd probably be a bit creeped out by some random woman asking about murder pictures too. Likewise, going to the police, at least in my mind, felt kind of like a non-starter. Without the photos, all I had was my word and nothing to actually show for it. As for the message boards online, my most common response for advice was advice for dealing with sexual harassment, which, while appreciated, wasn't really what I was looking for. To put simply, I couldn't find anything. Even when I enlisted the help of Isaac, who, bless his heart, believed me 100% about the whole thing, we couldn't find a single shred of something he could use to understand what was going on. I had wanted to ask Astrid for her help too, but she was dealing with her dad more and more that year, and the screaming matches honestly just sounded painful. The last thing I wanted when she was already so stressed was to add to my garbage on top of her. By the beginning of October, I realized that then I really only had one option left to me. Assuming this mystery mailer pulled the same prank as he had to the years prior, I would have to wait for him to act again before I could have my evidence. Then I could go to the police and explain what happened. Then, just maybe, I would have him. Just one more year, I convinced myself. When Halloween rolled around that year, I admit I practically leapt from my bed and ran to get the mail. In my mind, I could picture a scraggly looking man behind being what? I could picture a scraggly looking man being hauled away in handcuffs, desperately pleading that it was just a joke. Likewise, I pictured a large and bulky man being forced to the ground as police swarmed him, grunting as he fought uselessly against the officers restraining him. I'm not sure if this makes me a bad person or not, but I relish the idea of seeing this imagined creep getting overpowered like that, letting him feel scared for once. It maybe then also makes me a bad person then, that I was almost shocked, then angry to see Astrid already at our table, mail spread out before her. I wanted to scream. What was she doing? I always grabbed the mail, that was my job. Why was she screwing things up now of all days? I realized years later that it wasn't fair, that Astrid couldn't possibly have known what I was planning. Still in the moment, I had to compose myself, taking a deep breath as I slowed my pace and forced a smile. You know it's my job to get the email, right? I playfully admonished as I walked up to the table and sat down. I was already out. Figured I'd grab it, she replied, tossing aside what looked to be another credit card offer. Maybe I was just paranoid, but I had the distinct impression that she wasn't telling me something. Don't get me wrong, I had no reason to think that. My friend wasn't acting and talking completely normally. Right down to the bored expression and haphazard dismissal of any of the mail. It was more like she had a sixth sense, like a natural pre-built alarm that was just going off in my head. I didn't actually want to accuse her of anything though, so I tried to just let her go. Okay, anything for me? I asked, probably a little too eagerly. Thankfully, Ashley didn't seem to pick up on that and just shook her head as she looked at another piece of mail disinterestedly. Nope, she replied. It felt like my heart stopped for a moment. No. What did she mean, no? No blank envelopes with my name on them? None at all? Not this year, babe. She was lying. She had to be. Why would this guy just suddenly stop? He wouldn't. He couldn't. Not when I finally worked up the courage to do something. Ashford had to be lying, or maybe she had just missed it. Glancing at the table, I quickly scanned over the discarded envelopes and papers for any sign of something with my name, even the ones that weren't handwritten. Nothing. I saw nothing. This didn't make any sense. How could there be nothing? Even when I took the envelopes and the coupons or whatever else was in the pile and expected them, I couldn't find anything. Nothing addressed to me in an odd way. No handwritten labels, just bills, useless junk, and more bills. In my frantic grabbing, I failed to notice Ashford giving me a slightly amused look. You want to take apart the mailbox too? She asked with a chuckle. I didn't know what to say. I should have been relieved, ecstatic even, that there was nothing there. It was over, I thought. Shouldn't I be happy? Why was I so disappointed? No, it's just weird that it stopped, I admitted, trying to save face. Even at the time, I thought it was strange that I described it as weird. Not getting a photo of a dead body was weird? How had I gotten so used to it in just 2 years? Was I really so eager to get the guy doing it in trouble that I was upset that I didn't get anything? What was wrong with me? Looking back, I know I was wrong. I should have pushed harder, grilled Astrid about what she had done. I should have kept asking questions or kept looking around. I should have kept digging. Maybe if I had, Astrid wouldn't have gone missing in November of that year. There was no warning. No letter, no talk, nothing. One day she just got up and to go to work, and when I got home from my own job, she wasn't home. At first I wasn't really worried. Astrid had always been more social than me. Maybe she was just out with some of her other friends. So I waited for her to get home that night. Then I waited for a day. Then I waited by the following night. I tried calling her. I tried to call her again and again and again. Every time I would get a single ring, then a disconnected line before the line went dead. Call me paranoid, but I knew something had happened. I wasn't sure if she was in danger or had been kidnapped, killed, whatever, but she was in danger, and I knew it. I called all of our mutual friends to try and find her, to see if any of them knew where she was. At one point, I was even so desperate that I called trying her meat sack of a father. "What does it matter? She's no good to me anymore," was all he said. My blood practically boiled at his response. No good to me, I thought. My best friend, his daughter, was missing, and he didn't even care in the slightest. I'd always known he was a garbage person, but this felt like an all-time low. I swear I could hear it. I could have throttled him if he were in the same room as me. As it was, I had to settle for calling the cops. I remember reading somewhere that you have to wait 48 hours to be taken seriously for reporting a missing persons. Not true. Call immediately. Thankfully, that ended up being a myth, as after my call, cops were at my door within an hour. I won't go over everything they said. Honestly, I can barely remember everything myself. Just that they asked questions like where she worked, if this was her primary domicile, that sort of thing. I don't remember how long the questioning lasted, only that I was exhausted by the end of it. The police couldn't share everything they uncovered during their investigation. But from what they did, I got the impression that they genuinely tried their best. For what it's worth, they did find out some good information, namely that Astrid had arrived at her job the day she went missing, but rather than driving home afterwards, she confided in her coworkers that she was going to pay a visit to her father's house. I wish I could say from there it was an open and shut case, but from what they were allowed to share with me, the cops told me that she was a witness entertaining, and after about 45 minutes leaving her father's home. They suspected that she was on her way home, but needless to say, she never arrived. Worse than that, they never found her car. There's no sign of it on the roads that would have taken her home. Not parked, not wrecked, not even a broken off piece of it. It was just like she just up and vanished into the air. They checked out her dad, of course, but the lump still hadn't been leaving his house until a good 10 hours after Astrid had left. Since that was more than enough time for her to leave and gone home, and basically because the guy was shut-in with almost no friends to speak of, he was dropped out as a suspect. Honestly, part of me will always think he has something to do with it, but I understand why the policeman dropped him. By February of next year, I had to move out of the apartment Astrid and I had shared. Rent was already a nightmare on its own, and it's even more so when you're suddenly paying for two people's birth. Isaac, God bless him, was kind enough for me to take in. Kind enough to take me in. I was honestly more than fine with that. We've been dating a little over a year by that point, and I really liked him. He stood by me every step of the way, and I must have apologized 1,000 times for being so obsessed with Astrid's case. You'd always say the same thing in reply. She's your best friend. You don't need to explain yourself to me. Rat Rain? Welcome in, Raiders. We're reading a very haunting story of someone that gets a murder photo every year on Halloween. Welcome in. How was, I'm going to assume, Warframe? How did that go? Nice. Nice. Excellent. Warframe went well? We'd love to hear that. It seems that you streamed longer than you said you might be. Murder photo recipient's roommate also went missing. Now she lives with the BF. Yes, thank you, Cryptic, for catching us up for our raiders. If you do need to raid and run, I understand. Please, by all means, go take care of yourself, get food, get water, etc., etc. We continue. By February of next year, I had to move out of the apartment Astrid and I had shared. Rent was already a nightmare on its own, and it's even more so when you're suddenly paying for 2 people's worth. Isaac, God bless him, was kind enough to take me in. I was honestly more than fine with that. We'd been dating a little over a year by that point, and I really liked him. He stood by me every step of the way, and I must have apologized 1,000 times for being so obsessed with Astrid's case. He would always say the same thing in reply. She's your best friend, hon. You don't have to explain yourself to me. It was honestly no wonder why we were engaged before the end of the year. We were still living together. I mean, we still are, but that's besides the point. When next Halloween rolled around, Isaac had taken over the duties of grabbing the mail, so I was cozied up in the bedroom watching some movie that I honestly can't remember the name of. All I remember is that it was some schlocky romance movie, and that I was somewhere in the 3rd act when I noticed Isaac stepping inside a room out of the corner of my vision. Hey, hon, do you remember those plain envelopes you told me about? He asked. My chest tightened as I remembered them, muting the TV and focusing intently on my fiancé. Staring more closely, I realized there was a confused look on his face, and that he was clutching something in his hand. My chest tightened, even more than when I realized what it was, a plain white envelope. Yes, I remember. Why? What did they say on them again? To Jennifer? As I looked at the unopened postage and frowned. That's all? Nothing else? Why? I asked, sheepishly pointing to the letter. What does that one say? Isaac glanced back at me for a minute. I could tell he was considering whether or not to hand the envelope to me or not. Honestly, I wasn't even sure if I wanted it, or if I wanted him to throw it away. But then I remembered my plan from the year before. I could still try that, right? Maybe then the police could find Astrid? The guy who did this? Sure, I had no idea if they were even connected, but it was a reasonable assumption, right? Couldn't I at least try? I could feel myself shaking as I sat up and extended an open hand to Isaac. Understandably, he seemed unsure at first. From his perspective, after all, these things were just the result of some sick prankster going after his soon-to-be wife. In an effort to reassure him, I smiled the best I could and gently nodded my head. He still seemed antsy, but with a sigh, he relinquished the envelope to me and I inspected it. I saw immediately why he had to double-check with me. Right away, I recognized the same shaky and sloppy handwriting in black ink exactly as it was before. Unlike the last two letters, however, this envelope said, "She intervened." My stomach dropped, and I felt the wind leave my gut, like I'd been socked. She? As an Astrid? Before I realized what I was doing, I feverishly opened the envelope and pulled out yet another folded piece of paper. When I unfolded it, I screamed. It was Astrid, hanging from a noose, her skin pale and eyes closed. I don't remember much of what happened next. I know Isaac was there, holding me as I sobbed and screamed. He must have called the cops because they were swarming the apartment at some point. I'm sure they wanted to ask me questions, but I was pretty much inconsolable at that point. Poor Isaac had to do most of the talking. Through the blur of events, I just imagined my friend, screaming, crying, begging for her life. Had she suffered? Had she been aware when she died? Had she fought back? Could I have done anything more to help her? I just wanted answers. Why? Why me? Why her? Why? 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 I don't know. I still don't. I'm sorry, but I don't have any answers. For you? For me? For the cops? No one. There were a few suspects, but they all fell apart for one reason or another. A coworker was seen driving the same way as her for a while, but he was dismissed thanks to his mom's eyewitness testimony. Her dad was a popular one, but he was pretty much sedentary, so he was out. They even considered me for a while. I think Isaac was more offended by that than I was. I was the person closest to her, after all. Eventually, though, they realized I had no motive, and of course, that it couldn't be me when another photo arrived next year. And the year after that, and the one after, and after, to today. Isaac and I are now married, have two beautiful children, but still no idea who killed my best friend. Despite moving into a nice 4-bedroom house, we still get the photos in the same plain envelopes. Isaac tried installing cameras by our mailbox, but they never picked up anything. No one ever shows up, and yet we still receive those stupid envelopes. Always blank, save for those same 2 words. To Jennifer. Every year, same as always. Halloween is just a few days away now, and against my husband's urging, I've decided I had enough. This year, I plan to sit and watch the mailbox all night. Maybe whoever's doing this even knows how to avoid a camera, but he won't avoid me. I will see who is doing this, even if it kills me. She's absolutely dead. Yeah, I think that might be a good assumption. Alright, well, unfortunately, that is our last story for the evening. We have 3 very lovely stories written by 3 lovely, creative people on the NoSleep Reddit. I can feel myself getting more desperate to breathe. It's becoming a bit tricky to maintain reading and being able to take in a deep enough breath. So I think we're going to have to call it here, and I'm going to take probably another allergy med, maybe perhaps a cold medicine. Silent Hill 2 promised at OSGMV Happy Halloween. Lucinda Hammer, Warhammer 40,000. I spent what little of Halloween was left. Now I'm gonna go cut 2x4s for Day of the Dead after taking 3 melatonins. It's what Ozzy would have wanted. Fuck yeah, dude. I hope this was a fun and enjoyable little Halloween for you all that joined me. I always look forward to being able to read and share stories with you on Halloween, even if maybe I don't feel the best this time. But I enjoyed it nonetheless. I think even with me having a bit of difficulty, it was still very enjoyable. See you in 15 Profin cycles. Will do. I will see you guys on Sunday. Let me see if I can't raid somebody. Let's go and say hi to Flib, I think. Go say hi to Flib. Let's see. He is playing Alien Isolation. I'm sure that is going to be very fun and very goofy to watch. Go ahead, copy one of those. The first one's for subscribers, second one's for followers. Go say hi to Flib. Go wish him a happy Halloween. Go wish everybody a happy Halloween. Follow the rules. Make sure you check your child's candy and don't open any strange envelopes you get in the mail. Until then, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you on Sunday. Bye-bye!